Hey, Chris, man, welcome to Orlando and the BICSI Winter Conference 2024.
John, thank you for having me, and thank everyone at BICSI. Great team of people you have here. Incredible audience. Great questions, too. That was fun. Thank you.
And your presentation this morning was phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
I really appreciate how you encourage the audience and let them know that they really are a truly important cog in this whole ecosystem, particularly as things are advancing. They're not going to advance without this group of BICSI credentialed professionals, right, in the ICT industry. So thank you for calling that out. Can you talk a little bit more about that in terms of what their role potentially could be in the future if we're shooting data wirelessly between the moon and the Earth or the Mars or any other place? How do you see the cable installer's role sort of transitioning going forward?
No, absolutely. It's critical. It's critical infrastructure. And by the way, I'm very fortunate to have a great team of people behind me too. I was just the tip of the spear today. They did all the work behind me, which is fantastic. Well, when you go forward, we were talking about the first Renaissance, and that was printing presses and cathedrals. And that changed society. And those ripples are still going through our society, everywhere in the world. And now we're in the middle of the second digital Renaissance.
Yeah.
And I say that the cathedral builders of today are the data centers, and the people who build data centers and who cable them out and power them and everything. I mean, without that, we don't have a technological civilization. And it sounds trite to say it, but they are critical, key infrastructure and key providers. Because without that data, we can't feed ourselves. We can't turn the lights on. We have become so dependent upon data, and we're becoming more dependent upon this. And that goes down to everything in data centers. Edge of network data centers here. Anywhere where humanity goes, there will be data, and there will be data centers.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I've been amazed by some of the information that I'm hearing around data and how quickly it's growing. And I don't think people really realize how much the bucket of data, how big it's getting with technologies that are coming into play right now, like artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence with the large language models and all the technology behind building those models and the information that's being generated from those models, that's really driving a lot of data, right? So do you think it's going to continue to increase, particularly as we get closer to artificial generative intelligence?
Oh my gosh,
and
so much more.
Quantum computing, and that sort of thing. So I mean, how quickly is this going to happen? Is Moore's law really going to continue to impact the industry and data, and how far are we going to be able to go? Because at some point, it seems like we're going to come up against a wall. So how long are we going to be able to keep this Moore's law with data in particular doubling, every, 18 months or whatever it is?
Exactly. So that was it, Moore's law. Every time we think we've hit a limit on Moore's law, we burst through it. And we're seeing Moore's law. I have read that in the data creation side, we're at 7 to 8 times Moore's law. And you nailed it. Large language models, AI, quantum, just means more data.
More data.
Because the quantum computer is going to crunch more data, produce more data. This year's iPhone has half as much storage as next year's iPhone. And already people are filling those up, right? And backups in the cloud for every single smart device on the planet. And the more we use computers, the more data we generate. And it is just, I don't see an end. I really don't see an end. And we're now talking, I saw this morning on the news, I don't know if this dates the interview, but Elon Musk was talking about the first human trials of Neuralink. Which is the chip that goes in and connects, and the people who can't have access to their limbs, they can now talk through. And I've seen others do this as well. And so they become this melding of humanity and machine. And then that is going to create a lot more data.
That's incredible.
But most importantly, that data needs to be kept safe. Safe down here on the planet, right? We're not disrupting anyone down here. With what we're doing, we're just doing the next logical thing of taking the data somewhere nice and safe and cold with free energy, surrounded by gigatons of incredible basalt and rock that has survived billions of years of asteroids hitting it. And thinking, maybe we create all the data down here on Earth where it's at risk, and maybe we just save it somewhere logical and nice and safe up on Earth's largest satellite, also known as the moon.
And speaking of that, with all the data and the data being stored on the moon, backed up on the moon or what have you. With the amount of growth that we're seeing in data, we're also expecting a similar growth rate of power requirements for saving that data, transmitting the data, moving the data back and forth. How have you solved sort of the power requirements as that data grows? Because you even said in your speech this morning that it's continuing to grow and it's increasing every single day. Well, if you're storing that data on the moon and you're putting these pre-packaged, pre-developed, data centers, you park it on the moon, how are you going to expand the capacity of that? And how are you going to be able to continue to keep up with the power requirements of that particular data center?
Oh, absolutely. And on our first missions, we're using SSDs because they are no moving parts. Always a good thing in space. They're space qualified and flown. And so, SSDs on the helicopter on Mars right now.
Yeah.
But they're also low power, relatively low power. So this is the interesting mix. And John, you hit the nail on the head. Because, here in terrestrial data centers, we think of square footage, we think of power per rack. And that in space, we think of space qualified equipment, how efficient can it be, and how little power does it need to perform. Perform amazingly, but how little power. So we tend to think in terms of kilowatts, not megawatts.
Oh, okay.
Right? But as we go forward on the moon, the idea is that on the surface with facilities and then down below, we expand the solar panels, we expand the batteries, we expand the antennas. We can grow in stages and in phase. Actually, we pre-sell capacity. So we know exactly how much we need before we go up.
Okay.
And then with regular trips to the moon, backwards and forwards, there's 138 missions scheduled right now to go to the moon in the next 8 years.
130 in the next 8 years.
Yeah.
Just for the work that you're doing, in particular.
That's the Artemis program. Yes.
Okay.
We can tag along.
Wow.
Well, then we have our own missions going up as well after that.
Okay. You're going to be quite busy.
Yes. But I've been very fortunate to have an incredible team of people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
You've got to build a team of diverse people who are incredible. And I always say the golden rule is to be the stupidest person in the room, right? My job is to get them coffee, make sure they have everything they need, and give them a clear goal and stand back.
Yeah. Right. No, that's a great way to look at it. How can BICSI help with what you're doing? So, we're focused a lot on standards, training, and certification of the professionals that work in the ICT industry. And we've talked about our data center standards as well. So from your perspective, how can BICSI help Lone Star Data Holdings and others, partners that you're working with furthering the standards to be able to adapt to capturing leading practices and building this infrastructure, this ecosystem out? How can BICSI help you do that?
No, John, thank you. And BICSI can tremendously help, and its members can help too. So for us, standards are everything. When we fly in space, we have a strict set of standards, not just regulations. Space is the most regulated of all human activities. I would like to say the hardest thing about getting to space is getting permission, and it should be so, right? But also, as we fly in space, we have to go through a whole set of standards on electromagnetic interference testing, vacuum testing, vibration testing, thermal testing. And so there's a huge amount of standards there. But as we merge data and space together, these two incredible industry verticals, they've been booming over the last 60 years, and just at the beginning of what they're doing. It's how do we bring that together logically? Because we're going to have our work on the moon. There will be others. And China's already doing this, but there'll be others. Of course there will be. And then at the same time, there's people building amazing data centers in orbit around the Earth today. Yeah. These new future space stations are basically floating data centers with people inside them, right? And so the standards. And the idea that we can go ahead and start working on a clear set of standards based on existing, no projections, right? Because if we project it, we'll get it wrong, right? Always codifying existing practice.
Exactly.
But having a logical conversation to bring the space guys and the data guys in the room, and after that, they all get to know each other, and they'll realize that 90% of what we do is almost exact. The idea that you have to have backup power, the idea that the equipment and components you're putting in must be certified, that you must have standards for implementation, must have standards to build, to operate. And just when the satellite industry and the data center industry are marrying up in a very good way, when you're seeing a lot more data centers take on satellite dishes and everything that entails too. We tend to think of things in space. That's only half of the equation. The other half is down here on the ground, where all the money is spent too. And the idea being that, you're going to have you're already seeing at Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Echoset, massive sets of satellite antennas being installed. And guess who's going to be maintaining those? It's going to be the lads on site, boys and girls, on site. So the idea is, how do we bring those together? And we do it in a proactive way so that when someone goes, oh, it's okay. Oh, I have it over here. That's already been logically thought through. And here's the existing level of excellence in the industry, so the very best possible standards.
Yeah.
And we see, there we go.
Yeah.
That would be tremendous. And we'd love to work with you on that too, because that actually helps us.
I think there's a beautiful convergence here between the two industries. And it's interesting to see how that convergence beginning to shape up when we've already been seeing this convergence between the electrical trade, the electrical industry, and the communications industry. And we're working through that now as well. And so now we've got this piece here. So I feel pretty fortunate to be in the position that I'm at here at BICSI, because BICSI is kind of squarely in the middle of all that, or at least one of the legs.
It's like the honest broker.
Yeah.
Because you get to see all sides of this industry.
Yep.
So we always say that all we do in space is build amazing machines, put antennas or cameras on them, and shoot them up there. And what the data center industry does down here is build amazing machines and put them in a building with 2 sets of power and does comms and everything else. By the way, our satellites have 2 sets of power too. Seeing a pattern here, our gray space on both is might look slightly different.
Yeah.
It's incredibly similar in function, as is our white space and our payloads.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a conversation to be had, and to step ahead of that, and it's like having a catcher's mitt, to be ready to be there and catch that.
Yeah.
And to actually just enhance what's already naturally happening anyway, as these two industries evolve into, it's just a data industry is what it is. Yeah. Just serving digital needs.
Well, I hope it's accurate to say that BICSI has its catcher's mitt on, and that you've thrown a ball to us, and we're ready to catch it. So I'm so glad that you came and shared your story with our group, and certainly shared with us what amazing things are happening in the future, particularly when it comes to data centers and where data centers are going, because that's going to be critically important for the folks that we serve, so that they can continue to adapt themselves, upskill their training, and help you.
Thank you.
In this journey. So,
and on behalf of myself and everyone at Lone Star, because there's an amazing team behind me, thank you for everything BICSI's doing, because it is critical, right? You can't get from A to B if you don't know where B is or how to get there, right? And you guys lay down that path, and it's amazing. But also everyone in the data center industry, I mean, I really meant it. They don't know how crucial they are. I mean, not to put any pressure on them, but like Atlas, right? The entirety of human civilization is on their shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oftentimes it's one of the most misunderstood industries, especially from regulators who are great people, especially our politicians and stuff. There seem to be other things of more importance, and we're like, ooh, time out. You do realize how important all of this stuff is to making our world work, right? Yeah. These are the modern cathedrals.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's awesome. So I know that technology has sort of helped erase borders, not only here in the U.S. between states, but around the world. But proximity is still important. So you and I live in the same place, the same area, right?
The same piece. Florida's a great place for business.
We're neighbors, and I think that's just going to be even more fun for us to be able to move this forward faster and quicker, and again, maybe accelerate and squeeze those 130 launches from 8 years down to 4 years.
That'd be great. I know it'd be really good. Now for us too, and our next set of missions hopefully for 2026 after this as well.
Okay.
Just starting our fundraise right now.
Well, we'll be right there with you.
John, thank you very much.
So much, Chris. I really appreciate your time.
Really appreciate it.
Nice
Thank
to
you
talk to you.
Thank you.